In this video, I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know about Claude Code, from complete beginner to creating your own skills and getting Claude to do exactly what you want. Just to start off, what is Claude Code? Claude Code is just an orchestration layer which sits on top of Anthropic's AI models, which pretty much just makes the AI models run in a loop, giving it prompts and instructions which make its output better. Additionally, it also gives the models access to a lot of tools and skills, which makes them much more useful than just an AI chatbot. First, I want to talk about pricing. There's a few ways you can run Claude Code. First is using the API, which doesn't have any limits. You just pay for whatever you use. Second is with a subscription, which is probably the smarter option, since the tokens are much more subsidized and you can get way more usage out of your plan. I would suggest just get started with the $20 plan and see where you can go from there. You do need a subscription or an API key to run Claude Code. You can't run it on the free plan. So just to get started with the setup, come to the Claude Code docs page and copy this command and paste it in your terminal, depending on what operating system you have. For Windows, put it in PowerShell, and for Mac, put it in terminal. Here, if I just paste it in my terminal and run it, it should start installing Claude Code for us. As you can see, the installation is complete. Now, one thing I would suggest is when you're running Claude, run it in the specific folder that you're working in. That way it only has access to the working directory and not just everything on your computer. So I've just got this folder here. Let's just use this for now. You can open terminal at this folder. So there are a few different ways of running Claude Code. First, you can run it in terminal, but it can be a little bit advanced for people that aren't used to working in the terminal. If that's you, you can also just use it in the Claude desktop app. Here, if you can see on the top, there's chat, cowork, and code. If you just go in code, you can use it here as well. You can just select a folder, go choose any folder, Claude testing, and you can open that folder. And now Claude is working in that folder, which is what we want. We don't want it to just have access to your computer. You can also run Claude in an IDE, which is what you want to use if you're using Claude Code to code, which is kind of funny, but there are multiple use cases. You can use it for many different things, not just to code stuff. So here you can just run Claude and command not found. I'm glad this happened because this is an issue a lot of people deal with. That way, if we come back here to the setup notes, here it says sometimes you need to add Claude to path if it's not already in the path. So what we're going to do is just copy this command and it should fix this issue. Let's run this. Now let's try Claude. So we've got Claude running now. I just logged out of my account just so we can set it up again from the start. So first, just theme, just choose anything, doesn't really matter. Now here's the important part. How are you gonna be accessing Claude Code? If you don't have a subscription, then you can get an API key, but I still recommend just get the $20 subscription. You'll save so much money that way. I have a Claude subscription, so you just click account with subscription and it will take you to the browser and you just click authorize and that should log in with your account to Claude Code. Now it says security notes, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, just use the recommended settings. It's just not that deep. One thing whenever you're using Claude Code that's really important is context management. Every AI model has a context window, which consists of everything the model can see in that conversation. This context window is really important because if you get close to filling up that context window, your AI model may start hallucinating. It gets really bad. So you want to stay ideally under 50% context window. So if the conversation gets longer, it's better to start a new conversation. So now we know that it's really important to keep track of your context whenever you're in a conversation. Now, how do you do that? You can use the command /context to show how much context you used in that conversation. If you can see here, there's 74.2% free. So we've used around 20% of the context. This is because I already have some skills and plugins and tools enabled in here. But if you don't have those, then yours will probably be lower at the start. Now, it's quite annoying to do /context every single time, and it'll be annoying to do it, especially when there's a task running, right? So what you can do is, also another thing I want you guys to know is that you can just tell Claude to do most of the stuff. It's really good at navigating itself and changing its own settings and stuff. So if I just say here that set up a status line for context window, so I can easily see it when you're running. If you just send that, after just that one prompt, it set up the context status line by itself. So at the bottom now you can see 11% context used and it's 89% remaining. Okay, so the next thing is modes. Claude Code has 3 different modes. First, when it doesn't say anything, that just means it's on the default mode where it will ask you before running any commands or editing any files. It'll ask for your permission. Then if you do Shift Tab, then it goes on accept edits on, which just accepts all the edits by itself and you don't need to confirm them. And then if you do Shift Edit again, there's plan mode. Plan mode is really important whenever you're working on a project. It's better to use plan mode first because it asks you questions and clarifies what you mean in your prompt. So when it actually builds what you want it to build, it will have more information and be able to give you a better result. And then after you're done with planning, you can go and accept edits and tell it to execute the plan it made. Next is commands. You can run commands in Claude Code by typing / and then it'll show you a list of all the commands, and there are way too many to cover, but I will just mention some of the most important ones that you'll be using the most. First is model. As you can see right now, it says Sonnet 4.6 at the bottom. That's the model it's currently using. If you just do /model, you can choose which model to use, Sonnet, Opus, or Haiku. Opus is the best model, but it uses a lot of tokens and you can run out of usage pretty quick. And if you're using an API key, you don't want to just spend $50 in one prompt. You probably won't do that, but still. I would suggest using Opus for planning and Sonnet for execution, but really it just depends on the use case and what you're trying to do. So here you can change what model you're using, Opus or Sonnet or Haiku. Second command that's really important is clear. What this does is it just starts a new conversation with a fresh context window, which is something you should regularly do in conversations because you don't want the context window to fill up. So you can just do /clear and it'll just start from the start. Another command that can be quite useful is /compact. Now what this does is it doesn't start a completely new conversation. It compresses and summarizes the conversation you were having. So you can still have the memory from the previous conversation. It still decreases the context used by a lot. Now you can use this, but in my experience, it's just better to use markdown files as memory, which Claude can refer to and just start a new conversation. And finally, if you're having any issues with any of the commands, you can just do /help and it'll tell you everything you need to know or refer you to the documentation where you can have a more detailed look. In my opinion, skills is one of the best features about Claude. What a skill essentially is just a markdown file with instructions which tells Claude what to do. Now you can run /skills and it will show you all the skills you currently have. Additionally, one of the skill I think Claude comes with by default is /find skills. It'll pretty much just help you create or find skills that already exist from the internet. So if you just do find skills / and you just say front-end design, it showed me the 4 most popular skills on front-end design, and I can just choose one and it'll just install it for me. No manual setup needed. Next is creating skills. Now this is where you really level up your Claude Code workflow from slightly useful to completely replacing parts of your workflow, which can save you hours every day. Now, for example, I created this skill called AI News Scout, which pretty much just searches the web for whatever the latest news about AI is. And the best thing about this is I didn't manually write the skill. This is just a markdown file, but I didn't manually write it. I just told Claude what I wanted it to do, and I told it to just make the skill, and it just wrote this for me, and it just set it up, put it in the folder by itself. Okay, let's say you wanted to create a skill where it just tells you the top 3 biggest headlines of news today. So you can just tell Claude, create a skill which searches the internet and finds me the top 3 most important headlines of the day. And you can just send it and Claude will just create the skill for you. Okay, so it's created the skill and now it's running it just to test and see how well it works. See, so it ran the skill and it gave me today's top 3 headlines, and it also linked sources with that as well. And this is just an example. You can do way more powerful things with this. We just go in the Claude skills folder. Here you can see it created the top headlines skill. And if you just have a look in the markdown file, see, it just created this markdown file by itself. So this is how you can use Claude to create skills, which makes Claude better. If you're primarily going to be using Claude Code to just code apps or websites or whatever you want, I'd suggest you use Visual Studio Code. You probably already have it, but so if you don't, then you can just install it for whatever operating system you want. So if you install it and open it, this is probably what you'll see at the start. Now you can go on the extensions tab and search up Claude, and you'll see this Claude Code extension by Anthropic. You can just install this, and after you install it, you'll see this Claude symbol on the top right of your editor. And if you click on that, it'll open a window with Claude Code, and you can use Claude Code here. You can also use Claude Code in a terminal in the IDE. First, just open a folder in the IDE. Okay, we can just open the same folder we were using previously. Now you can just go on terminal, new terminal, and it'll open a terminal at that folder. You can just click Claude and it should open. Okay, now we're going to be using Claude Code to actually make something. So here we're just going to set it on plan mode first, and we're just going to ask it, create a Flappy Bird game that I can play in my browser. See, it doesn't give much info at all, but because we're in plan mode, now it created a few tasks for itself and it's checking them off one by one. See, so now it's asking me questions on exactly what I want with this design. I can just say B, minimal clean design. Beyond the core gameplay, should the game have any of these? Let's just do A and B. We want just the basics and the high score tracking. Now it's asking, do we want just a single HTML file or separate HTML, CS, and JS? Just for this example, we'll keep it simple and do an HTML only. We'll just go ahead and answer all the questions it's asking me. This is why we should use plan mode before asking it to do something. If we straight away used the agent mode, it would have just created the first thing it thought of. But because we use plan mode, it's asking us questions. It's clarifying exactly what we want, and then it's going to give us a better final output. Now that I've answered all of its questions, it's writing down a plan for how to create this project. Now that it's finished writing the plan, we just tell it continue implementation, and it should start working on creating the project. Okay, cool. So it's done. And now it's created a file that I've opened in my browser. It's just an HTML file. Cool. Now let's see what it did. Click space to play. Cool. Okay, this is not bad. This is not bad for pretty much a singular prompt. And okay, I'm not the best at Flappy Bird, but this is what Claude Code can do. And this is a very small example. You can do amazing things with Claude Code. So that was how to use Claude Code from complete beginner to proficient enough. Of course, there's a lot more you can do with Claude Code that I didn't cover in this video, but there should be a good starting point for you to go and create what you want using Claude.